よろしくお願いします。はい。じゃあ始めさせていただきます。映画を見ていてですね、一番印象に残ったのが、そのビゴモーテンセンの咳払いというか、タンがずっと絡む音というのが、映画の中でずっと全体のトーンになっているような感じ。で、あの音がですね、この映画が老いと、それに基づく肉体の変化っていうのをモチーフにしているんだっていうことを、思わせてくれまして、クロネンバーグさんご自身は自分の肉体の変化をどう捉えているか、老いというのはある種ポジティブな変化、大変興味深い変化だって考えていらっしゃるのかなと思って、ちょっとそれをお聞きしたいと思います。
The first thing to know is that it's inevitable. And you'll probably hear me coughing too, actually.
Yeah.
My throat is a little straight and drinking a lot of water. Yeah. Well, it is a transformation. When I just turned 80 not that long ago. And it's a strange number to me. You know, I've never been 80 before, and it seems quite extreme. But it's if you think of yourself as a child, you immediately feel the incredible transformation physically, emotionally, mentally, intellectually, every possible way. And so and that continues right until death. And then after death, there's continued transformation, maybe not in terms of consciousness. I'm an atheist, so I don't think that our minds continue after death, but still there is a transformation, bodily one, that continues. And it doesn't stop until we are absorbed into the universe, you know? So it's a natural thing. And it's a curious, interesting thing. And of course, human beings have never been satisfied with just the natural process of things. We always try to control it, to shape it, to create art out of it, to create culture out of it, to create a war out of it. And so we are very involved in our own transformation, unlike probably most creatures.
Thank you.
ですね、はい、ちょっとお尋ねします。以前のですね、例えば、特にザ・フライ、それからですね、戦慄の絆という映画では、非常に、主人公の部屋がですね、非常に清潔な状態に保たれていたのが、身体の変化に応じてですね、どんどんそこが、メッシーな感じになってくると。で、それはそのできることが変わるってこともあるんですけども、ところが今回の、クライムズ・オブ・フューチャーに関してはですね、人間が免疫能力を進化させたというか、免疫能力、完全な免疫を手に入れたということで、そのバイキンだなんだという心配しなくてよくなったということで、その非常に廃墟的な、未来像というものが提示されているわけです。で、そこで遡って考えたときに、例えばザ・フライの時も、もしかしたら、じゃあブランドル・フライはですね、進化したことによって、その免疫を手に入れたから、つまり僕はそれはその精神の崩壊を意味しているんだと思ってたんですけども、部屋の状況がね、精神と肉体の崩壊を反映して汚くなってるんだと思ってたんですけども、そこには逆にポジティブな意味があったのかと。で、また戦慄の絆においても、それに近いことがあったのかどうかということをちょっと伺いたいなと思います。
Well, I suppose it's an aesthetic question. We shot the movie in Athens, and Athens is a very old city. And it has a kind of, I really responded to its elements of decay and decadence as well. And it felt really right for the movie. Also, of course, we're talking about a society in which certain elements have broken down, the kind of elements that we take for granted, like street cleaning, and that you need to have a functioning government and culture in order for things to be clean and constantly renewed. And I've suggested that just as their bodies are undergoing transformations, the cities and the buildings are also undergoing a transformation. In their case, it's a devolution, rather than an evolution. So I don't think I had a particular message other than that it just felt that it felt like the right ambience for the art and for the performance art of the characters and so on. I think, yes, if you imagine it in a very sterile glass and stainless steel environment, it would be quite a different movie. And I don't think it would have worked actually that way. So it's just my instinct, really.
ありがとうございます。
That's a good question, though.
私から、クライムズ・オブ・フューチャー、監督の初期の作品と、タイトルはよく似ている、別の作品だと思うんですけれども、私が初めて監督の作品見たときっていうのは、まだ中学生や小学生の頃でして、今から30年、40年弱ぐらい前ですけれども、あの頃から考えると、今ってもう未来なわけですけど、そのキャリアを通して、今なって、今の世の中っていうのは、監督はどのようにご覧になってますか？あの頃、こうなるということは予想はされてましたでしょうか？今の世の中っていうのは。
No, I did not. I think because for me, the function of art is not really prophecy. I don't think that's really the function of art. But sometimes your instincts and your intuitions and your sensitivity to your environment and so on leads you inadvertently, accidentally, to prophecy, to prophesy something. I mean, of course, there's a strain of science fiction in which prophecy is the nature of the game, that many science fiction writers want to be able to say, I predicted satellites before there were satellites, for example. But I think in general, art is not really about prophecy after all. It's really about an understanding of the human condition as it exists, as the art is created and as it is absorbed. So in Videodrome, yes, people felt that I was anticipating the internet and interactive television, so on. And in fact, I was to a certain extent. I think it was something that I thought could happen. But as if you've seen the movie, I don't really deal with the specifics of the technology or anything like that. It's not really a science fiction movie, Videodrome. So I would say that many things I would not have anticipated, really. Although I think I might have anticipated something like this, that we would have a group of people interacting through a screen at a great distance. But in a way, someone who grew up with the beginning of television and the beginning and of course the telephone and so on, you could anticipate that. I think that would be not so hard to anticipate. But many other things. Well, it's true that in Rabid, I anticipated in my own way the understanding of DNA and so on, and the idea that human cells could be reduced to a basic primal cell that could develop into any other kind of cell. I did invent that in Rabbit, and it has turned out to be absolutely true. That's the way the body works. You begin with these primal cells that then become very specific cells. So there is some of that. But for me, that's playfulness. That's not really an attempt to predict. It's playfulness, saying, what if things work this way or that way? And there's a huge element of play, like a child, like children playing in art and in my art and in narrative art. However serious we might think we are, and how much money might be involved or not involved, and how much ego, I think the pleasure in it is really to play. I just finished shooting a movie now, another movie. And I was working with a lot of people that I had worked with before, and it really was like a group of children who, in kindergarten, who got together in a sandbox and started to play games, inventing characters and so dressing up. So I don't lose sight of that, really.
Thank you.
はい。ですね、映画の中に出てくる自動食事機というのがありまして、ご飯を食べさせるのが、すごい苦労して体を揺らせながらご飯を食べさせるんですけれど、あれはチャップリンのモダンタイムズを思わせるものがありまして、考えてみればチャップリンも肉体と機械の、関係を、現代人の関係を描く映画でしたが、これはチャップリンのように笑ってくれっていうようなメッセージだったんですかね。
I think with Chaplin, it wasn't always about that, but certainly in modern times, it was definitely about that. No, I wasn't thinking about modern times at all, but it's a lovely connection because he was a brilliant creator and artist, and I love the connection, I must say. But I was really thinking more about children sitting in their high chairs, and having to be fed and having trouble because their bodies have not completely developed and their digestive systems have not worked, and parents having to feed them and so on. So I was thinking more like a machine that's your mother, that's feeding you, more than because it is an organic chair, and that suggests that it has some kind of organic life. Whereas in modern times, everything is very machine-like. There's a real opposition between the machine and the body, the human body. Whereas in my work, I think there's a sort of coming together of the two things. Nonetheless, it's a very nice idea.
Thank you.
ですね、以前監督はインタビューで自分の映画には必ずオープニングシークエンスをつけるんだと、オープニングのクレジットをつけるんだということをおっしゃっていて、それは観客をですね、映画の世界に誘うための、ゲートウェイとして必要なんだということをおっしゃっていて、僕は本当映画のオープニングクレジットが大好きでして、ない映画を見るとちょっとがっかりしてしまうんですけども、で、特に、監督の作品のオープニングが全部好きなんですけども、特に息を飲んだのはクラッシュですよね。で、あれで、あのような形で、アート的なやり方で、渋滞と事故というものをですね、視覚化したということで非常に感銘を受けたんですけども、それは置いといてですね、今回の、作品の、冒頭もやっぱりオープニングのシーンがありまして、あれは多分臓器に刻まれた、タトゥーを表現したものだというふうに思いましたが、ですね、それで、今回もですね、この、指摘されていることではありますけれども、戦慄の絆の時にですね、そのインナービューティーと内なる美というものが、の話をするわけですね。で、外がどれだけ綺麗でも内臓が、恐ろしく奇形の人もいるというような話が出てきて、今回もまさにまたそのインナービューティーにまつわる物語だ。で、このインナービューティーっていうのは、言葉のあやですよね。だから言葉のあやをそのまま、時期通りに解釈して映像化するということを、が行われているわけです。で、監督は以前、これもまた別のインタビューでおっしゃってたと思いますけれども、スキャナーズの頭部が爆発するシーンは頭が割れるように痛いという、文字でその言い回しをですね、そのまま映像化したものだということを、おっしゃっておられました。で、僕はそういう、なんというか、言葉の言い回しを、リテラルな意味で解釈して展開するというところに、こういったあれなんですけども、ウィリアム・エス・バローズの影響があるのではないかということをちょっと常々考えてたんですけども、その辺いかがでしょうか。
Yeah, I don't really think much of my movie work making comes from William Burroughs. I mean, certainly he was an influence on me, but where he comes from, he's so American, he's so Midwestern American, and so so much of his own time and his culture, also of course being a drug addict, being gay. I don't think, and yet, yes, of course, in Naked Lunch there are huge connections. Of course, that's a specific Burroughsian project, but I don't think in this movie, for example, there's anything that I don't feel that connection really directly with him. I hope it's not just ego here, but I do think that a lot of my visual imagination was developed before I ever read Burroughs. I mean, really as a boy, and then you come across people whose work resonates with you. It doesn't necessarily form you or influence you. Maybe it encourages you, supports you, you know. So there is that kind of influence, but I don't really think that has specifically come from Burroughs. No.
なるほど、わかりました。Thank you very much.
最後になるかもしれないですが、他のインタビューでですね、以前読んだもので、人間の肉体を改良するとしたらどうしますかって聞かれているのを読んだことがありまして、その時には、クローネンバーグさんは、ちょっと即答はできかねる、ちょっとゆっくり持ち帰って考えさせてくれっておっしゃってたんですけれど、今だったらどう答えますか？
Well, I think we are constantly doing that, but it's a question of what you mean by improve, you see, because, for example, so much of medicine and medical technology is really not to improve, but to give continuity to what we have naturally, you know. So we're worried about our shoulder suddenly doesn't work, our ankles don't work, we can't stand up. Our digestion is no longer working, you know. So in a way, it's really we don't really think in terms of improvement, but sort of keeping what we have when we've been injured, when perhaps we've had some unfortunate mutations, or when we get older, for example. Things to really keep us at a certain point that we thought was our best moment in our life, whether it was the age of 40 or 30 or whatever it is. To improve the human body is not an easy thing, because the body has developed over, well, really millions of years. If you think of what started as a single cell millions of years ago, and possibly billions of years ago, the evolution of it is astonishing and really very incredibly complex. I mean, at a certain point, I thought I would be a cell biologist. I was interested in cell biology.
Mm-hmm.
And this was, okay, I'm 80 now. That would have been 55 years ago, maybe. The huge expansion of knowledge about what a human cell is and how it develops is enormous. It's phenomenal. And the complexity of a single human cell is really astonishing when I think of how a cell was depicted in those student books, you know, about biology. Even I'm talking at university level. You had, you know, the nucleus and the cytoplasm and the ribosomes and a few little things. But when you look at what is in a cell now, I mean, it's like a little universe. If you go deeply into a human cell, it's a universe, and it's incredibly complex chemically and physically. I mean, so I really don't think. Of course, you have all the superhero movies that can talk, that like to play with the idea of superpowers and so on, but they are really very simplistic when you think of it. I mean, you know, compared with what we actually are, it's phenomenal. So I don't really think so much about the improvement of the human species. I mean, for example, I have hearing aids, very sophisticated, you know, digital hearing aids. In my eyes, I no longer have the normal human lens. I have plastic lenses in my eyes. I had cataract surgery. That's why I can look at you and see you without glasses, actually. And I can read your names. So I am a bit of an improved human being, except that these things are not as good as the ones that I was born with, you know? So they're not really improvements. They're improvements on what I had this year, but they're not improvements over what I naturally had. Let's put it that way.